9. IRVIN Hernandez Flores. In what San Francisco District Attorney Brooke Jenkins described as an extremely horrific premeditated double murder, 23-year-old IRVIN Hernandez Flores allegedly opened fire on his father and stepmother in 2022. To make matters even worse, he live-streamed his crimes for his social media followers. He was accused of entering the home of 47-year-old Jose Hernandez and 41-year-old Yesenia Soto and brutally gunning them down in front of their 11-year-old daughter. The killer appeared happy to watch the couple as they suffered from gunshot wounds in a pool of their own blood. Unfortunately, the victims died from their injuries despite the life-saving efforts of emergency responders. In the meantime, police took the suspect into custody on suspicion of murder, burglary, and child endangerment. Hernandez Flores, a former Marine, was accused of breaking into the home. He reportedly told investigators that he didn't remember much about the shootings. He admitted to local station KTVU that he was armed when he went over to his parents' house, and he was also angry at his father and had been drinking heavily. However, he insisted that he never meant to hurt anyone. Hernandez Flores claimed that a relative had recently accused his father of disturbing abuse, but police declined to confirm a motive when questioned by the press. The suspect blamed the incident on alcohol and also said that when he entered his parents' bedroom, his father woke up and charged at him in the dark. This apparently caused him to go into a panic, and he pulled the trigger on his gun. In his own words, Hernandez Flores said, "Once I emptied the clip, I turned on the lights and then I seen him on the floor." Afterwards, his father supposedly said, "You did good, son." The suspect claimed that he then ended his father's suffering, and he confirmed in an interview with the reporter that he intentionally shot the man again. He said that Soto, his stepmother, was essentially collateral damage, stating, "I didn't have any intentions to deal with her." Hernandez admitted to shooting around 20 shots, despite the fact that he claimed that he didn't remember much about the crime. He also recalled with suspicious clarity how his half-sister was shocked and stunned by the crime he committed, and how she needed help calling 911. At the time of the murders, he was applying to become a member of the San Francisco Police Department. However, it's safe to assume that he never got the job. 9. Tang Lu. A 30-year-old Tibetan vlogger named Amuchu, known to her fans as Lamu, was in the middle of streaming a live video for her followers in 2020 when her ex-husband Tang Lu appeared and brutally murdered her. He covered the popular influencer with gasoline and set her on fire, leaving 90% of her body with burns. Unfortunately, Lamu died in the hospital 2 weeks later. The mother of two had divorced Tang Lu 3 months earlier after experiencing a terrible marriage with a history of violence. She had apparently reported her husband's abuse to the police before the tragedy, but was allegedly told that it was a family matter and received no help from the law. Lamu tried to continue on with her life as normal and gained a sizable following of hundreds of thousands of fans who watched her videos about life in China's remote and mountainous Aba Prefecture. The lack of help she received from the police isn't exactly surprising, considering how China only criminalized domestic violence in 2016. Since then, the issue has slowly become a priority among law enforcement throughout the country, especially in rural areas. Millions of social users demanded justice for Lamu on social media, but most of these outcries were censored by China's notoriously overbearing government. However, the court ended up taking Lamu's murder quite seriously, describing the crime as extremely cruel and saying that it called for severe punishment. Tang Lu was eventually sentenced to death for the murder and was executed in 2022. 7. Rajai Black. In 2021, social media users frantically contacted Baltimore police to report a terrifying video they saw on Facebook. 44-year-old Rajai Sharif Black went live on Facebook and confessed to murdering his ex-girlfriend Tara Labang. He explained that he was entangled in child custody battles with both Labang and his ex-wife Wendy Black, leading him to become depressed and hopeless. Rajai blamed Wendy for his problems and said that he was going to kill her. He then cautioned his viewers not to play with people's emotions while he approached her front door and fired multiple bullets at her before turning the gun on himself. The former couple's 2 children were in Wendy's SUV nearby when the murder took place. By the time police reached the scene, it was too late to save anyone's life. records showed that RAJAEE and Wendy's custody battle had been going on for 3 years. Wendy repeatedly tried to obtain an order of protection against her ex, telling the judge that she feared what he was capable of. However, she was denied each time. A recent girlfriend who wasn't targeted in the murders told local station WJZ that RAJAEE was depressed when they dated and that he hadn't gotten help for it. She found herself emotionally supporting both him and herself and ended the relationship when it became too much for her to handle. His downward spiral continued from there, leading him to seek a permanent solution to his problems. 6. Earl Lee Johnson Jr. 35-year-old Earl Lee Johnson Jr. was reaching the tail end of a days-long drug binge with a female companion in 2022 when he was overcome by an urge to murder the woman. In what Baton Rouge police described as a very gruesome, very evil act, Johnson tied the victim Janice David to the steering wheel of a car with jumper cables. He then proceeded to choke, beat, and stab her for more than 15 minutes while he was streaming on Facebook Live. Following the murder, Johnson tried to set the vehicle on fire and abandon it with David's lifeless body inside. Law enforcement was unaware that the murder was broadcasted on social media when they discovered David's remains that night. And by the time the state police notified the East Baton Rouge Sheriff's Office of the video the next day, Johnson was already in custody for a suspected vehicle theft. As a result, he was charged with first-degree murder in connection with David's death, and he remains behind bars pending the outcome of his case. Johnson allegedly admitted to the murder, but gave no motive for the crime. 5. Jonathan Robinson. In one of the highest-profile murder cases to come out of Louisiana in recent years, 27-year-old Renita Williams was brutally gunned down during a Facebook livestream inside her home in the city of Shreveport. She was broadcasting the video when her ex-boyfriend, 36-year-old Jonathan Robinson, kicked in the front door and forced her to apologize to him and to his new girlfriend in front of her viewers. However, it's unclear what he was demanding the apology for. Throughout the disturbing livestream, Robinson can be heard repeatedly calling Williams the B-word and asking her if she wants to be famous. Williams quietly responded no, with Robinson standing over her. She pleaded with him to stop as he grabbed a rifle and fired 6 rounds into her. The young mother of 3 dropped her phone, but the live stream continued. At the very end, it showed Robinson looming over her, and he then said, "Game over." Following the murder, Robinson shot at 8 police officers during an 80-minute standoff before they finally took him into custody. One of the bullets struck a member of law enforcement in the wrist, but he survived the ordeal. Williams was rushed to the hospital, but she later died from her injuries. Her family told the press that she dated him on and off for years, but she ended things for good about 2 years before the shooting took place. Prior to their final breakup, Robinson was charged with domestic violence. He ended up spending roughly a decade behind bars on various charges, including robbery and aggravated battery for his crimes. But at least one previous allegation, including a charge for possession of crack cocaine, was mysteriously dropped without explanation. Robinson apparently never moved on from his failed relationship with Williams, which led to him being charged with first-degree murder and possession of a firearm. In the end, he pleaded guilty in order to avoid the death penalty and received a life sentence. Apparently, he apologized to the victim's mother, Anita Williams, but by then he'd already sent her several letters from jail. Surprisingly, she forgave her daughter's killer, and as Robinson was being escorted from the courtroom, he also apologized to the police officer he'd injured in the shootout. 4. Janae Pettis-Clow. In 2022, a 31-year-old mother from New Orleans named Janae Pettis-Clow caused unspeakable harm to her 4-year-old daughter and 2-year-old son during a heated custody battle with their father. Jermaine Roberts had recently filed for full custody of the kids based on claims that Pettis-Clow was mentally unstable and was failing to provide them with a healthy environment. While he didn't seek to revoke her rights entirely, Roberts wanted to reduce her visitations with the children to weekends. Instead of getting the help she needed in order to fight the battle out in court, Pettis-Clow stabbed her son and daughter. She then posted a short video on social media confessing to the needless tragedy, with blood dripping down her chest. After attempting to kill her children, she called Roberts repeatedly and showed him the aftermath of the crime while threatening to kill him next. Roberts called the police and rushed over to Pedersklau's home, but when she refused to let him in, he smashed a window and forced his way inside. He rushed the injured kids to the hospital where they underwent emergency surgery. Sadly, the little girl died from her injuries. The former couple's little boy was critically injured but survived the ordeal. For the crime she had committed, authorities charged Pedersklau with murder as well as attempted murder. During a court-ordered evaluation, a psychiatrist determined that she was hallucinating and deemed her incompetent to stand trial. Pedersklau had a history of bipolar disorder and schizophrenia and lost custody of her oldest child back in 2013 over mental health concerns. According to the most recent update, she's being held at a mental health facility where she'll hopefully be restored to competency so her court proceedings can resume. 3. Steve Stevens. Robert Godwin Sr. was walking home from Easter dinner in Cleveland's Glenville neighborhood in 2017 when a man approached him and asked him to say a woman's name. Moments later, the man said, "She's the reason why this is about to happen to you," and fatally shot the 74-year-old grandfather. He fled the scene and uploaded cell phone footage of the murder to Facebook later that day. Police identified the shooter as 37-year-old Steve Stevens, a vocational specialist who appeared to live a normal life until that day. In addition to the video, he made numerous disturbing Facebook posts after the murder, including one claiming he'd killed 13 people. Stevens and Godwin didn't know each other, indicating that the victim was randomly targeted. There was also no evidence that Stevens killed anyone besides Godwin. By the time the video was reported to police, the suspect was long gone from the area, sparking a national manhunt. 2 days later, a McDonald's employee in Erie, Pennsylvania, recognized Stevens in the restaurant's drive-thru. The worker told him there was a delay in preparing his food in order to try keeping him there while the manager dialed 911. Stevens became suspicious and sped off, but it didn't take long for police to catch up to him and disable his vehicle by ramming into it using what's known as a pit maneuver. Desperate to avoid facing the consequences for his actions, he took his own life before he could be taken into custody. Godwin's children were devastated by the murder, but their father had raised them not to hate people, and they wanted to honor his values. In a tearful interview with local reporters, they said they forgave Stevens for the crimes he had committed. 2. LaRossia Bala. One day in 2016, an ex-convict barged into the home of 2 married police officers in France and stabbed them both to death in front of their 3-year-old son. He then started a live stream on Facebook while holding the little boy hostage and encouraged other Islamic extremists to carry out similar acts. The Islamic State terrorist group known as ISIS later took credit for the crime, and witnesses told police they overheard 25-year-old LaRossia Bala yelling Allahu Akbar as he carried out the deadly attacks. After failing to negotiate with the Bala, officers stormed the home and killed him in a shootout. They rescued the little boy, who was in shock from the horror he'd seen that day. However, the child was miraculously uninjured. Abala used Facebook Live to spread his hateful message and encourage violent crime, which sparked questions over the role social media plays in furthering radicalist agendas and encouraging brutality. 1. Douglas Colson. 55-year-old Prentice Robinson was well known and liked among law enforcement in and around Wingate, North Carolina for outing drug dealers. However, he naturally made enemies, and in early 2018 he was shot to death while live streaming on Facebook. At the time, Robinson was talking about how he'd gone to his local police department to file a complaint against a family member for allegedly stealing his cell phone. He just left his home when a man approached him and they began to argue. Shots were suddenly fired during the confrontation, and the video ended as Robinson's camera fell to the ground. The suspected shooter, 65-year-old Douglas Colson, turned himself into the police the following morning. He was subsequently charged with first-degree murder for the crime. As it turned out, Colson was the person that Robinson was talking about and accusing in his Facebook Live video when he was gunned down. The case went viral, but Colson's sentencing is still unclear. Would you rather accidentally livestream an extremely private conversation with your best friend, or be criticized for recording a crime you witnessed rather than intervening and trying to stop it from happening? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.